Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. I am also the host of Folk and Great Music House Concert Series. And for the first time, I'm going to talk music with one of my favorite singer-songwriters, Dan Navarro. Dan, thank you so much for taking time to kibitz today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yay. So this is going to be very different from my others. But let's start with your background, where you grew up and how you got started in the music business.
Well, I'm from the Mexican border in California, deep, deep Southern California, Calexico, opposite Mexicali, Baja California. Grew up down there and moved to Los Angeles to go to UCLA, and studied music there. I was a band player playing French horn. I studied vocals. I studied conducting, and somewhere in there got the bug that I wanted to write songs. I don't know, but basically, I think I was hit in the head with a two by four. I pursued that and actually managed to get some traction fairly young. Um, then I had a very long fallow period, and then out of the blue in 1984, I might co-wrote with my late partner Eric Lowen
So
the
we're
big
going
hit
to talk
song "We
about,
Belong."
yeah, so we're going to
We
get to
shall
all
indeed.
that. So
But basically, I've been a musician since I was about 9 years old.
amazing. So there are a lot of people who know about Lowen and Navarro, and I was proud to present you all at my house concert series. And we will get to the trajectory of that partnership. But why don't you start with how you and Eric first connected?
Eric and I met when we were singing waiters in a restaurant where basically out of work musicians would go to have a day job and still retain some musicality. He had just been dropped by Capitol Records, where he was in a band with a guy, and I was just out there struggling. We met, hated each other on sight, and from that, we developed into this very tight unit that sang and wrote together for over 30 years. We met doing just a day job, but we always had this idea of what we would do, and several times pulled our careers out of the ditch and managed to get very lucky.
So you've already referenced We Belong. Why don't you talk about what that was, the process of writing it, and then its journey and your journey as a result of that one song.
The short version of the story is Eric and I had been in a band together. We were side guys in a band for 3 years. It wasn't working out, and my day job was taking over. So I was asked to leave the band. I was pretty angry about it, and I cut off communication with Eric after years of speaking daily. He called me 2 months later out of the blue and said, "Hey, man, let's write a song," kind of for no reason. And I really didn't want to. But I realized that I needed some musical influence. I was over 30. I thought that my career was over. I thought it was never going to happen. And we got together in an evening after not having spoken for 2 months and wrote "We Belong" in 90 minutes. Due to some meetings we took and some tapes we took around, a couple of chances we took, and good old fashioned dumb luck. 13 months later, it was top five all over the world, and everything changed overnight.
Amazing. What are you proudest of with that song?
Proudest of how it seems to cut to the core of how difficult relationships are often worth preserving. I was writing about a failed relationship from 2 years before. Eric was talking about a relationship he was in that was about to fail. And we realized subconsciously we were also talking about our friendship that was on the rocks. We weren't going to be friends anymore. We got together just as a sort of Hail Mary pass to see if we could have some fun. And it pulled everything out. It literally changed our trajectory 180 degrees. We became professional. We were in the community. That happened more than once. We tried to push another band and it was failing. It was failing. This was a later band. And he finally said, "Well, let's just go to a corner bar and do this duo thing that we've been talking about for 8 years and not even try to get signed up." And we made our first record 2 years later.
Amazing. Now that song has appeared in a lot of venues, and as you know, I was shocked to hear it see it and hear it in a movie recently.
It's been in multiple movies, many commercials, lots and lots, something like 14 TV shows in the course of the last 3, 4 years. It is the gift that keeps on giving. There are royalties that come from that, and it does provide, a lot of my income, and to the Lowen estate, to his widow and his two kids. It speaks to the nature of intellectual property and copyright, which is something, as you know, I take a real serious institutional
Mm.
hand in. It's a big part of my métier.
So Eric was diagnosed with ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Talk about the diagnosis and how you all kept performing.
We had reached a point in our careers where things were starting to wane. We were about 10 years in. Actually, we were 14 years in, and we were older guys. But we had a steady thing going, and we figured, well, it's not going to be big anymore, but we can keep going indefinitely. And then fate tapped him on the shoulder and said, not so fast. So he was given the option. Do you want to stop? You could be gone in 6 months. I had had experience with ALS. My ex-wife's father's significant other, when we were dating, died of ALS in 5 months. You
Mm.
could be gone in 6 months. You want to quit? He went, heck no. We're going to finish what we started. And he says, I want 18 more months. And we got 5 more years. He got 8 more years. He was retired for 3 years when he passed away, but he got 8 years out of a 2-year disease. If that isn't success, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Talk about how you educate folks and support the journey and the research and stuff, awareness of ALS.
Well, it's a mysterious disease. It's also considered a rare disease, partly because people don't survive. There's no such thing as terminal ALS because it is a fatal disease. There's no such thing as not terminal ALS. You can have terminal cancer. I know cancer survivors who've lived 30 years. You don't really do that. And some people have lived 30 years with ALS. I have a friend in Minneapolis who's been
Wow.
about 25 years. I have
Wow.
other friends who lasted a year. It's an
Mhm.
unpredictable disease.
Yeah.
And nobody really knows quite what causes it or what proliferates it. But basically, the motor neurons between your brain and your muscles die one at a time. And so you can feel everything, but you lose the ability to move your voluntary muscles. Digestion persists. Heartbeat persists. They're not voluntary. You can't stop your heart for a second to goof on your girlfriend for an evening. But breathing is voluntary because we can hold our breath. So that's ultimately how people pass.
Well, let's shift to something happier. In addition to hosting you in Rockville, Maryland, in my home, let's talk about the different ways that performers and presenters and DJs and agents and others get together. So we connect every year at NERFA, the Northeast Regional Folk Alliance, Falcon Ridge Folk Festival. You and Eric played a number of times, Folk Alliance International. Why don't you talk about how those are helpful, important, or critical for a singer-songwriter?
Well, the popular music business is the kind of business where you can get pretty hot and pretty huge pretty quickly. And when you're huge, you're very, very huge. And when it goes away, you can be completely invisible within 2 years of your great success. The folk world, for lack of a better term, and nobody really knows what folk is,
Right.
but it's a self starting, self supporting, interconnected community of people who feel a particular way about the music they hear. It's soulful, it's meaningful, it tells stories that matter and stories that connect to their lives. So we all tend to run in these circles that are interconnected. Focus Music in the Washington, D.C. area is a connection of house concert presenters who band together rather than competing. The International Folk Alliance is performers, presenters, labels, journalists, and aficionados who get together to say, if we don't gather together, this is going to go away.
Yeah.
And it's been one of the things I've loved about the process of being in the folk community. I mean, I started out in pop rock. My music was always acoustic. I haven't changed a thing, but I aimed it at a new community, and it brought me an extension to my career that's been nearly 30 years longer than I thought it would be. It would have been gone away in about 4 or 5 years had I not joined with the folk community. I didn't go folk. It's not like you put a costume on.
Right.
And the people that you and I know in common are some of the most insightful, expressive, soulful people in the world. Ellis Paul, oh my God, Reggie Harris, Vance Gilbert, Eliza Gilkison, Lucy Kaplansky, the list goes, Christine Lavin, the list goes on and on and on and on.
Yep.
Around this area, the late David Glazer, oh my God,
Right.
it's pretty cool. And so we found each other. We're not letting go now.
That's right. Damn right. So speaking of your career, you have not been exclusively a singer-songwriter. You've also been an actor and a voiceover talent. Why don't you talk about those and how that is for you?
Well, it's interesting how that all erupted. There was a point when my royalties from We Belong had diminished to the point where I couldn't live on just them. That it stopped being livable by itself, and I started thinking, I need to maybe get a job. Ooh, job.
Damn.
And a buddy from college, that I sang with calls me up and says, "Do you want to sing a jingle in my garage for $100?" I went,
Nice.
"Heck yeah." I mean, I really do espouse the philosophy. The only answer is yes, except in certain cases. So I went to his house and for $100 sang on a jingle. There was a woman on the session who said, "I book Spanish jingles. I'll bet you'd be good. Do you have a tape?" And I did. She called me a month later for a Miller beer commercial. And um, I went in freaking out. I'm not going to know the Spanish well enough. It's going to be hard. I ran a tape in my head. It's not going to be La Bamba. It's going to be hard. And I walked in and it was La Bamba.
No.
So I aced it and I go, "Thank you." And the other two singers, one was a producer who's now won Grammys. The other was a jingle composer who I worked with many times. So I got introduced to a brand new community in one go. For
Amazing.
10, 12 years, I sang for every beer company, every cereal company, every car company, doing hundreds of jingles a year. One day, somebody called up and said, "We want to hire you. It's not a jingle, it's a voiceover." Okay. And I did it. And suddenly I was the voice of Toyota in Spanish
Mm.
for Southern California. All of that has mutated when someone else called and said, "Do you feel like doing some background noise voices on a little series? It's not much money, but it's union." I did it. They canceled it 2 years later. They brought it back 2 years after that. And the result is I've done over 250 episodes of Family Guy and 175 of American Dad because I keep getting hired. That has mutated into character work, into singing in movies. And it's sort of been the kind of St. Augustine grass, you know, horizontal weed spread of a career that it's not like I set out and said, "I want to do that." It's more, "I'm going to do this, and this led to this and that." A stepping stone path through a career that, looking back on it, has been kind of amazing. I didn't, it blows my mind because I did it in real time. It's been 32 years and 34 years. Here we go.
There you
The
go.
most recent was I sang in the movie Encanto,
Okay.
which had a big #1 album and a big #1 single. We Don't Talk About Bruno. Won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. Um, and this is how it goes. You get hired, you show up, you do your best, and then you don't think about it, and it does what it does.
Amazing. So you're a leader in SAG-AFTRA, and why
I
don't
am.
you talk about that and how you're involved in labor unions and making sure that actors and singer-songwriters' rights are protected?
The fact that my career started slowly and started relatively late in life, and that I made many bad decisions, led me to wanting to participate institutionally. I don't think I need to talk to you or and educate you about what it takes to decide I'm going to show up for the hard stuff. I want to know how the sausage is made instead of either complaining or going, "I can't do anything about it." And in particular, in pop music, people can make lots of money, but there's a lot of money that misses the mark. Many performers, we all see the big superstars and they're wealthy. What really is at stake is a large middle class group of working people who are struggling to make livings. If you if you do 3 guest slots on a TV series, you're well known. You might generate $10 or $15,000.
Mm.
The basic point is you can't make a living, so you got to try to keep doubling down and doubling down. I've been fortunate. Many of my colleagues have not been quite so fortunate.
Right.
So I show up to try to make sure laws are what they should be,
Mhm.
that the institutions that are paying pay what they should pay to get the rates up. I will say, from my personal political point of view, inside the industry, also to make sure that industry does well. Because if the industry goes away, there are no jobs. It's not about killing the golden goose. It's about making sure that they don't forget, you need us, pay us fairly. And by the way, a big part of what I do in the union is working conditions, not just wages.
Yes.
I'm on 2 other boards right now that puts money into the pockets of actors, singers, dancers, songwriters, 3 different organizations. But working conditions are part of us. Don't work us 16-hour days with no turnaround.
Right. I think you may know this, but do you know that Folk and Great Music, my house concert series, was the first unionized house concert series in the country? I have a collective bargaining
Your local
agreement,
1000, I had
local
no idea.
1000.
I'm
Yeah.
so proud of you.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
And
You
working
know,
conditions in addition to pension payments, a healthy meal. There were a bunch of things in the contract in the collective bargaining agreement that just seemed like common sense.
And a lot of people, a lot of employers resist it because they think that the clerical lift is really heavy. We try to find ways to make it more streamlined and to make it easy, and especially if they consult with the unions. But everybody deserves the opportunity to make a living wage, to have benefits that provide. I am 34 years into Screen Actors Guild health insurance, and I'm pulling pensions as soon as I could pull them now because I'm
Okay.
a little older than people think I am. But essentially, they're going to provide me with a living and an ability to stay secure
Okay.
because of all the work I've done.
Yep.
It's not a gift. It's negotiated into the pension plan instead of giving me money now.
Right.
So it's really my money the
Right.
whole time. Um, but to defer it and to have a program for it is what unions are all about.
So I still have a million more questions. When you were talking about those who were super successful, talk for a moment about your cousin Dave Navarro and how
Mhm.
often you're interconnected or confused for each other or anything like that. Quick story.
Well, I get called Dave a couple of times a week. It's a famous name. It is a similar name, Dan and Dave. It's not like it's Ed and George or
Right.
Ed and
Bartholomew.
Maria. Exactly, Bartholomew and Scooter. So we get the names confused. No one's ever confused us for one another. I'm a folkie and I'm older than Dave. He's a hard rocker and really, really talented. Um,
As
we
are you,
he,
my dear. Come on.
well, thank you so much. I can't say we grew up together because I was an adult when he was a child.
Uh-huh.
But I taught him his first guitar chords. I used to live with his dad in the 70s. I worked for his father in the 80s. We are very, very, very close. We don't
Nice.
see each other often because of our schedules. I haven't spoken to him in about 3 months,
Mm,
but I sent him a text last week when Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters died
yes.
because the two of them were in a band together called Navarro Hawkins Cheney.
Mm,
And I know that Dave is stricken. And I just spontaneously wrote saying, I love you. I'm here if you need me. I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping he's okay. I'm pretty sure he is, but he's definitely heartbroken, as
yeah,
all
of
of us are.
course.
And I had only met Taylor 2 or 3 times.
Right. And on the day we're taping, I guess the Grammys are tonight and the Foo Fighters were going to be performing and now are not as they're grieving.
Well, it's understandable that they not go out and do their normal thing.
Yeah.
Taylor was a big part of what they did. He was very animated. He would come out and lead sing once in a while. The band with Dave, he's the lead singer, and he's a wonderful front man. Kind of interesting that the drummer from the Foo Fighters is a front man because Dave Grohl was the drummer in Nirvana. So there's this drummer turned front man progression that's going on. But it's heartbreaking that he's gone.
Yeah.
But Dave and I are tight. We care for, I mean, we love each other like mad and have been through an awful lot. He's had
Yeah.
some very difficult changes in his life, and I've been there for all of them. And
Sorry.
so we're close, but
Yeah.
we don't see each other often. I don't think I've seen him in person in about 3 years.
Let me, you do one small bit in your average show that's in Spanish. Have you ever
That's right.
thought about making a bilingual or Spanish language CD or doing Spanish language concerts or something, really expanding that part of your repertoire?
I am on July 15th. I'm going to be singing songs for the St. Paul Saints, the minor league team out of St. Paul, Minnesota, in Spanish.
Huh.
I I often lately have been doing a whole song in Spanish, an old classic called Sabor a Mi. And I've got a new record coming out August 19th.
Yep.
In 2023, I'm putting a Spanish record out, all Spanish, and I cannot wait.
Did not know that. That's awesome. Let's talk about COVID. And you launched, you hosted the Corona Zone, Songs from the Corona Zone. Talk about how you
That's right.
kept your music alive and stayed connected to your fans
It
through
was
the
it was it was
challenge.
about not going nuts. When shutdown happened in Los Angeles, I actually went out and did a single song stream going, "Hi everybody, we're locked down. I'm probably canceling at least the next 4 weeks of shows," never realizing it was going to be the next 13 months of shows. I said to my agent, God, this could be happening in May, and it turned out to be 13 months from March. So I went for a song. The next day I did 30 minutes. I said, well, I guess I'll see you tomorrow. And I did an hour. Well, I guess I'll see you tomorrow. And I was off to the races doing it for 2 hours plus, 6 days a week for 5 months, 3 days a week for the next 8 months.
Mm,
And it was 250 shows, frankly, more than I've ever performed in a single year.
mm,
When I started realizing that people were showing up to keep from going nuts, they
yeah.
needed something to do. And I would connect with them. I'm looking at a little screen, but I'm not. I would imagine and think about who's there and, hi, how are you? And I would see the chat and I would do roll call. Oh my God, Mariana from Argentina. How are you? Deb from the DC area. Good to see you.
Yep.
And they started chatting with each other. They started making fun of me. They started talking about the silly things I did, but also the moving things I did. In short, they connected and communed over what I was doing. What it made me realize, this ain't about me, it's about them. And that kept me going. I would work on putting together the shows every day, no different than Leno did or Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel. You work on, what am I going to do today?
Yeah.
And it kept it fresh, kept it current, kept it active. They coalesced into something called the Dan Fam that was started by a woman here from the DC area. There's almost over 750 members of it. Pretty bizarre. And they get together and they fly in from all over the country to see one another. So they found a way to keep connected when we weren't allowed to even leave our homes.
Sure. So now you're touring again. You
That's right.
most recently had 4 nights of shows in Annapolis. I was thrilled to bring some friends and colleagues and be there for 2 nights. Talk about performing again in a post-COVID world ish.
I started a year ago in a van. Now I had toured on the ground in an RV up until 1998. I stopped that and we would fly to a hub city, rent a car, do some shows, and then fly home. That was my contour. I got the idea that I wanted to be in a pod and I wanted to see things more directly. So I bought a camper van in March of last year, and I put in nearly 50,000 miles in the last year on the ground everywhere. Um, I saw it very distant and masked, where I would only bump elbows, where I wouldn't talk to people after the shows. I saw it lighten up a little. I saw it clamp down a little. I saw the North keep masks on while the South were going, what pandemic?
Right.
And I kind of rolled with all of it. Right now, it looks like everybody's behaving like it's all gone. There's a new variant coming up,
Yep.
so we'll see what happens. My experience with the last variant is that if you're vaccinated, which I am, and I'm at the front of all those lines. If you get it, it's not bad. Omicron hit everyone I know, not particularly badly. No one was hospitalized, no one was killed, no one was seriously challenged. I did know people who died, and they were the ones who were the holdouts on the vaccine.
Yeah.
I've been lucky. I've had, since January, 14 negative tests, and I haven't. If I'm going to do a session for Disney, it's mandatory I get tested.
Of
I have
course.
test kits in the van. If I'm feeling a little weird, like maybe I'll sit there and do it,
Right.
and make sure that I'm cool.
Yep.
I even marketed masks that are not selling very well at all, but it's okay. They're there. And I have a couple dozen, N95s in the van.
So
I've been lucky. I haven't gotten sick.
Yeah, me neither. I feel like I'm knock wood. And I'm starting to wear masks again sometimes in committee and on the Senate floor, because there have been a bunch of senators who have gotten COVID recently. And
There's another aspect to it that I try to remind myself of. It's also polite. If someone says, take that thing off, I might. But the whole notion is no different than covering your face when you sneeze. When you see somebody, you're in a brand new room, you don't know what the situation is,
right,
mask when you go in.
right.
I
Yep.
wear masks. I don't wear pants. I'm not wearing pants right now, but I've got masks. I'm kidding.
So I have a few more questions before we get to our fast 5. What is the best compliment you've ever received for your music?
Ooh, you told my story and it happens occasionally. You told my story. You've been reading my mail. It's like you were reading my mind. It's like you've been mining my dreams. And that is, I've had people name their kids. I've had people say they've gotten through suicidal times. I've had people say they've fallen in love, first dances. To have an impact on somebody's life in that way is not something I take for granted.
Yeah.
I'm just up there making up ditties and having some fun. But that it burrows its way through the epidermis into the soul is the
Beautiful.
greatest compliment you can pay me.
Beautiful. I know that you have gotten to meet some folks that you've kind of fanboyed and all that. Who is your musical idol and why?
I have 2, 3. Jackson Browne because nobody coalesced that soulful part of writing in a way that resonated with me like he did. I admired how he wrote. I admired what he wrote about. Um, I've known him casually for about 40 years, and I'm still uncomfortable around him because of Jackson Brown. We become quite friendly in the last 5 years, 10 years, to the point where little soul shake and a shoulder embrace when I see him,
Nice.
and he's a good guy. But I'm still sitting there going, I don't dare talk nonsense with him. He's Jackson Brown. The one guy I've never met, is major idol, and intimidates the living daylights out of me is Bob Dylan,
Mm.
and that is massive. I mean,
Okay.
he changed everything. Suddenly, you could write about anger. Suddenly, you could write about politics and not be isolated as simply a topical singer.
And
And he
who's your
also kind
third?
of crossed the line. Pardon me,
Who's
Joni Mitchell.
Joni Mitchell?
Joni Mitchell, for the same reason, deeply, deeply incisive, bearing her soul, but not from a place of weakness. She can call herself weak, and you feel the strength. And that enigma to me is something that motivates me. She's just won the Grammys Music Cares Person of the Year award. She's had challenges since her stroke,
Yes.
and right now SiriusXM is running a Joni Mitchell channel that I've given a dedication to, and picked a song, and I listen to it, and hearing stuff, it blows my mind.
Nice. Nice. The last question before the fast five. What is the future? What do you hope and plan for your musical future going forward?
Well, I have a record coming out, but I've made the record I wanted to make, and I'm going to promote it as well as I can. I don't hold any naive illusions about how it's going to perform in the marketplace. I'm a much older guy, and it's a different world. However, this is the record that I've been meaning to make my entire life. It hits on every cylinder, so I'm going for it.
Mhm.
The future of my music is I'm going to keep going until I run out of things to say.
Yeah.
You know me a long time. I tend toward the loquacious side, so I'm not going to stop. The other part of it is I'm still having fun doing it. So, from that standpoint, I want to continue to tell stories. That's what we all have in common. You, me, your staff, your colleagues, our friends are all storytellers.
Yep.
That's really what I want to continue to do. The future of music in general is quite tenuous, but the demand has not gone down. The economic systems are in flux, and the delivery systems are changing all the time. If
Yep.
we can stay on the crest of the wave and realize our job is to tell the stories, then we can stay ahead of those curves. It's not about whether it's CDs or downloads or streaming. It's about, what are you saying? Even if what you're saying is party till dawn, that's a legitimate message, not one that I particularly am going to sing
Yeah.
about. There are others better at that.
Yeah.
But it's about, what do you have to say? Who are you? And why should I listen to you? And the
So
ones who tell me, go
sorry,
ahead.
the album that's coming out in August will be number 14, right? And then the Spanish language
Actually,
in
number
2022.
17, number 17,
Number
because there
17.
were there were 13 Lowen Navarro albums, and I put out four.
Thank you.
I put out three, so I've got a fourth one. And actually, I have put out four. I now had, so this is number 18. I
All right.
forgot I put out a record last year with James Lee Stanley of Led
Yes.
Zeppelin covers. I totally forgot about that.
Yes.
So no, this will be number 18.
James Lee Stanley, also a folk and great music alum, whose
Yep.
music I really love. Okay, well, Dan Navarro, this has been so fun. It's time for our fast five. 5 quick questions, and I'm doing them a little bit more musical than I might normally do. But question number 1: if there were a movie musical that were being remade, which one would you want to be part of?
Oh my gosh, Guys and Dolls.
Ooh,
I want to sing "Luck Be a Lady" and the oldest established permanent floating crap game in New York. I would go for a revival of that, whether it be Sky Masterson or not, or just
right.
nicely, nicely. But I'd want to be in that one.
Interesting. So I'm a Broadway musical fiend. So my intern came up with that question, and yeah, that is a musical I've seen too many times, and I find it so sexist and dated. Not my most
Yes,
favorite.
true. Honorable mention, Company, which is
Okay,
actually
I
my
like Company.
favorite musical.
Okay.
Company is great, especially as they're looking at what are relationships for,
Yes.
and if in an era when people were thinking, well, maybe I don't need this, and The guy, I don't want to be leaned on. And he goes, wait a minute. Yes, I do.
Right.
Somebody hold me too close. Somebody
Yeah.
sit in my chair,
Yeah.
pull me up short. So that's really
Bobby, Bobby, baby,
Bobby,
Bobby, Bobby,
Bobby,
Bobby,
Bobby, come on over to
Bobby.
dinner.
Okay,
That's the one I can sing the most of.
there you
You're
go.
always sorry. You're always grateful. Oh
Yes,
my
that's a
God.
great song. What song are you proudest of? And let's take We Belong out of that equation. Tell us one that you really just think is A plus.
Bulletproof Heart from my first solo album
Nice.
because it told a story of a romantic encounter that didn't go well, but in particular was with a person who was very, very difficult to pry open emotionally. And it cuts as close to the bone as anything I've ever written in my entire life.
Nice.
And generally, the response to that, without sounding immodest, is when it's over, people go, "Oh,"
Yeah.
and that's it.
So I may put you on the spot and you can totally say no. Do you want to do a verse or a verse and a chorus or anything a cappella now or no?
Of that,
Of Bulletproof
of
Heart.
anything.
Those who have never heard you
Oh God,
don't know that song.
yeah, I had a dream. I flew like a bird to the top of the mountain, and there you were, bathed in the shadows, alone in the dark, with a lock and chain around your bulletproof heart. Somebody tell me, please, are we really here? I open my eyes, and you disappear, and all the king's horses and all the king's men can't put the genie back in the bottle again.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. Question 3. What is your dream venue? Someplace you've never performed that would just mean the world to you?
Ooh, well, truth told, Carnegie Hall. That probably won't happen.
I missed.
Um, Carnegie Hall.
Carnegie Hall. Cool. Okay.
That probably won't happen. My dream venue is actually a venue that I've played 35 times. It's a little bit odd to say that. But since Lowen retired, I haven't been able to be booked as a headliner at the Birchmere. I mean, it's fair. I don't draw as well as I did when the brand
Mm,
was alive.
mm.
But at the Reba Heyman Memorial, I ran into Michael Jaworek, who says, let's talk about getting you back in. So
Nice.
right now, the Birchmere is my dream venue because
Nice.
I want to go back to where I've been 35 times,
Of course.
so many successes,
Yeah.
and just do it one more time.
I saw you guys there so many times and at Ram's Head and elsewhere. I did not see Michael at the tribute to Reba, and I'm glad that her name is a part of this conversation. Those who don't
My
know
heart.
Reba, she was my friend, my constituent, and sort of a folk godmother. And along with her late husband, Vic, they were just the dynamic duo and just inspiration and loving supporters of so many singer-songwriters. And
The Queen of Rockville.
yeah, exactly. So proud of that. Question 4, if you could jam with anyone, living or dead, who would you choose?
Bob Dylan.
Okay.
I would want to play with Bob Dylan just once, and he'd probably go, cut it out or something. But that would be the big hit.
Neat. And the last question, Dan Navarro, the question that I ask everyone, what is your hidden secret superpower? What is a skill or talent that you have, something most folks can't do?
I can remember details, details about meeting people, dates, what they were wearing, what they said. I love when somebody says, this happened. No, it was like this. It's all in there. It's all in there in a chronological Rolodex, and I can spin it and go. Brrr. I remember that my first performance in the DC area was on July 18th, 1990, with Nisi, New Carrollton off ramp. We walked in, we were beat, and she said, look what the cat dragged in. And I said, yeah, cat tried to bury us in the backyard. Remember it like it was yesterday.
Wow.
That is something, that's the one that I value.
Yeah.
I will tell you what people have told me recently is that I help bring people together.
Mm,
Good people meet good people and connect. And they go, we met through Dan because I collect good people. And I go, you two need to know each other.
yeah.
You're going to have a lot of fun. So that's the one that I've been told that I'm the most proud of.
Well, as a political person, I can tell you that I'm pretty good at names and faces, but you are extraordinary. You meet someone and see them 10 years later and you're on it and that's really impressive. So
I told you earlier today about the gentleman I met, and I'd never been to his restaurant. And I just decided to chat him up. And of course, I dropped your name and he dropped your first name. So I knew I assumed that you had been there before.
right.
But when
This
he
is an
indicated,
Annapolis establishment that none of us have much been to since prior to COVID. Yeah.
well, and part of it for me is that I had never done the drive around the State House Circle.
Yeah.
So I've been coming to Annapolis for 25 years and I never knew it existed.
Mm,
Was going to go take a friend to dinner at the Boatyard, which I love.
yes.
And I'm showing, but you got to see the State House. What is Terry Brown's?
Right. Right.
That looks really cool. We
Yeah.
parked, we went in. I meet Rusty at the front and we get to chatting. And I said, yeah, actually, I was just here last week and
Nice.
I happen to be friends with Senator Kagan. He goes, oh, Cheryl. And I went, "Oh, cool."
The
And
worlds
yeah, he gave me his
collide.
card. The worlds collide. I'm going to be inviting him to my show at the Ram's Head in August. And,
Perfect.
but this is how it is. You know this to be true. There's nothing crass about it. There's nothing canny about it. It's called making a good impression and being friendly. I don't network.
Mm,
I make friends.
there you go.
And basically, you know, all business is personal.
Yeah.
All politics are local, period.
Love it. Well, Dan, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being my dear friend
My dear
for
friend.
so long. I adore you, and you bring
Right back.
joy around the world with your music and your spirit. And so, thanks for taking time to join me today on Kibbitzing with Kagan. And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
You just made my day. And but now I have to start a podcast called Noodling with Navarro. I'm just going to have to do that.
I love
I
it.
love you. Thank you so much for having me. All the best. And I know I'll be seeing you very, very soon.
Good. Take care, sweetie. Bye.